Hello everyone, and welcome back for another RGB RPG's DM Prep Guide. Today we are taking a look at session 30 of our Candlekeep Mysteries game, and as you can see, we have taken quite a break in doing these prep guides for a while for various different reasons, but let's go ahead and recap where we are right now with Candlekeep. So the last session prep video we did focused on Sarah of Yellowcrest Manor and the party delving down beneath the city into some ruins there to confront Lord Yellowcrest and figure out what he was up to. That was a big portion of the homebrew content that I'm putting in, not necessarily the situation that's going on at in Greenest, but the underlying motives are what I tweaked with a lot. Um, really tying it into the overarching campaign that I'm starting to bring together for this 16 adventure campaign. And yeah, the overarching vision of what we want to do is really coming together. I'm going to do a full video on how I tied all of this together and the overarching campaign story that I told. With that at the end of the campaign, so a while from now. But it is coming together quite nicely, and we're starting to get characters from Candlekeep involved. I have officially plotted out where the involvement of this big cult that they're dealing with comes into play throughout the remaining 8 adventures here. So they went to Yellowcrest Manor, solved the whole issue of what was going on there, and discovered a little bit more about what was happening. This entire time, Candlekeep was locked down. They weren't able to return. By the time they finish with Lord Yellowcrest, they can return. They go back to find that some shady shit has been going down at Candlekeep while they were gone. Somebody broke into the restricted sections of the libraries beneath Candlekeep in the catacombs, and somebody was murdered. Somebody that the party had just begun to get to know a bit. So that led them into the next adventure, which is going to be Lore of Larue. So if it hasn't become obvious yet, there's going to be some pretty big spoilers for Candlekeep Mysteries, particularly the 8th adventure, Lore of Larue, or the level 8 adventure, Lore of Larue. So the party has entered into a book, a fantasy book that was written as a home for this demigod / daughter of gods, the unicorn Larue. Her magic that is contained within the book and then used to power various spells throughout the library has been disrupted. It's how they managed to get through and into the restricted sections was by corrupting this book. And the party was able to get to the location, realize that it had been tampered with and was in a bad state, and then entered into the book, into the demi-plane within, where LaRue is living, and the area that has now been corrupted by this cultist that had broken into the library. So yeah, they've spent a little while inside of the Lore of Larue book at this point, and are really starting to get a good feel for what's going on in there. You have up here the entity that was snuck into the fortress and implanted into the book is the only truly sentient adversary within. That is because it is sending out its influence around. Everyone else was a member of the community, a being that existed within the storybook before this creature got here, and then when it got there, it started corrupting everything. The party hasn't figured this out yet, but anything that has been corrupted by this presence can be saved, can be helped. Appropriate cleansing magic, even something like a protection from good and evil, might do the trick on lesser beings. Lesser restoration, if used enough times, could cure even the most far gone individual under this corruption. So, party spent a bit of time in there, met a few of the individuals, fought some of the adversaries, and now they're coming up against their first big. These were good creatures before this started happening. There's a group of sisters that are druids that live in this place, and the corruption has hit them very hard. May have even been one of the first individuals that the creature moved against because they were so powerful. But they have been transformed into 3 hags that now torment the creatures around them, capture and imprison them, and have even captured 3 dryads that were previously their friends. So that is where we are now. The party has made their way through a lot of the forest. encountering some pretty nasty spiders along the way, along with were creatures and berserkers. We've hinted that these were, and technically still are, denizens of the place, but we haven't really delved into the potential of saving them yet. So yeah, so this encounter is a pretty gnarly one. Let's go ahead and head back to the Hag Hovel. That's where we're going to pick up this session. And there is one thing that I would like to say about Lore of Larue. The encounters are really, really trivial. All of the encounters that have led up to this part have been super easy. Like, they don't even, like, when I'm doing my encounter building in D&D Beyond, they were barely showing up on this scale here at all. And I'm planning on doing a video on encounter building and how to balance for modern 5e, because this system is just so flawed at this point, especially once you get past level 4 or 5. Once you get past that, this is practically unusable as a real mechanical way to judge how difficult your encounters are. So we'll do a video on that at another point, but just know, if you're going into Lore of Larue, really think about your party and if these encounters will even be mildly challenging for them. Now, if we had a group of 3 or 4 characters that are coming into this as a one-shot, technically, yes, it is as it's intended. But if we have 3 or 4 characters that are coming into this as a one-shot, they have no extra magic items, they just are level 8 characters flat. The encounters would still be easy, but they would not be so incredibly trivial. As it stands, though, I have a party of 6 characters, and they have been through 8 levels of stuff acquisition. They are powerful. The encounters here, they could have walked up and said boo, and everything would have just died. They have been thoroughly adjusted. The webbed path, there's some great spiders that you can throw in. I threw in a couple space spiders and a ghost walk spider from Kobold Press into there, along with the Eder caps that were recommended, and more giant spiders. So that was still a fun encounter. At no point was anyone really in danger of dying during that encounter. If things went poorly, of course, that could have changed, but even with all of those additions that I made to it, it still wasn't a very dangerous encounter. So that brings us here. Originally, the only thing that is supposed to be here is one hag. If you look at the way that it's written, it is just a night hag, a single night hag. And if you check out her CR, it is, if it was just her by herself, she is still, even that party of 3 or 4 level 8 adventurers, this would have been a cakewalk for them. Of course, you could throw in some of the hag special spells, like the homemade little Molotov jars with a fireball in them, or whatever it may be. My favorite one is the potion bottle full of little beetles that she smashes onto herself, and the little bugs crawl out all over her and start stitching her wounds together as a cure wounds for herself. But there's all kinds of things you could do like that. But even with a handful of spells at her disposal appropriate to her level, this would have been a cakewalk. Hags are dangerous, When you encounter a hag, that's supposed to be a very scary and frightening thing. A party of level 8 adventurers, any singular hag that we were to throw at them, trivial, they'll walk all over it. So I turned it into a coven of hags, and we have some things here to make it a little more balanced. But this is the way that we're going to set this up. We have the 3 sisters. I turned them from a single hag into a group of 3 druid sisters that now inhabit this particular grove. And one of them's in here, concocting potions and tormenting a pair of druids. We've got another one over here who is going to be tormenting and menacing the various animals and everything inside, including one of the druids. And then we have the final sister out in the woods, hunting and trying to track down more animals to bring back. So when the party arrives, all they are explicitly aware of is 2 things. The first is that there is a group of 3 sisters, druids, as far as the rest of the people here know, that live here, and they've been asked to check up on them. The other thing that they know is that my brain just went completely blank. So they know that there's the sisters here, and what is the other thing that they know? Well, when they approach, they know that one of them is home. Maybe that's the other thing that I was thinking about. Brain completely short-circuited there. But so they come up and they hear one of them cackling inside. So they know that there's three sisters that they used to live here, and they know that there's one, at least one of them currently present, right? So that'll give them the idea that they need to be careful as they approach, hopefully. Um, Now the other major threat that's here is a Grick Alpha hiding out down in this well. Now, again, by itself, this is not a very big threat. It is a watchdog. If the party approaches, we're going to set him up down here along this side of the map, and they'll be able to walk right past this. If nobody looks down into that well, that Grick will slide up out of there and try to ambush them whenever it sees appropriate. Basically, as soon as they cross this line right here is when the Grick will come out and start moving towards them, possibly surprise them. If they do alert the presence of the Grick and they start to fight it here, that'll of course alert the two hags that are nearby. So the party has the opportunity to surprise either one of the two hags that are in the hovel if they can sneak past the Grick and make it to that door. So that is a good opportunity for them to get a jump on them and possibly deal a boat ton of damage before anyone can react. But generally, what we're going to see here is this is what I would expect. Party passes by here, gets to right here, Grick slithers out, tries to do a stealth check and fails. Party starts to fight the Grick, right? That alerts these two who show up at the top of round 2. All of my players know I love doing things at initiative rounds, give everybody a chance to get their bearings as to what's going on, and then react to it. 6 seconds, right? 6 seconds around. So 6 seconds for these two to realize, holy shit, something's trying to kill our Grick, and come on out. So that is what I expect. Round 1 starts with the Grick combat. Round 2, enter these two hags. And then round 3, top of the round, Sally Longguts comes out of the woods, and she is going to hurl a carcass, an elk carcass, I think I put down, at whoever's closest to the stand of trees as she emerges. She's then going to join the fight, and that will signal the arrival of the third hag, and we will have 3 hags within 30 feet of one another, part of a coven. Basically, if they are in this fighting zone, they can cast their spells, and that's when things are going to get really dangerous. But we have it staggered so that by the time things get really dangerous, hopefully the party is close to, if not having already eliminated one of these threats, and thus negating their spellcasting ability before they even get a chance to do it. So yeah, this is a pretty dynamic encounter. I'm pretty happy with it. Again, originally all this was supposed to be was this individual, this hag, I forget what her original name was. I changed them all to S names for the coven. And the potential for a Grick attack. That was the entire encounter. Again, I love hags, and I love making them dangerous, so this is a potentially deadly encounter. However, there is a little bit of a trick up the sleeve for anyone who might die here. I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but essentially there is a contingency if somebody does die while here in Lore of Larue. All right, so let's see what else we got. After this, there is more, but for now, let's go ahead and check out what we have in our prep. So we talked about this a little bit, that the thing that was brought into the school and implanted into Lore of Larue is a dark entity, and it is the thing pressing forward all of the negative things happening in Lore of Larue. Talked about the Glimmer Sisters and the Grick Alpha. Talked about where they are. Grick Ambush. Talked about all this. The next part that we have, and that we will likely get to, is going to be approaching the Pool of Eternal Spring where Larue is. Nearby the pool, directly in the path that the players have to take, is a group of partying cultists. These were just regular people that lived in this area, more druids, villagers, whatever they may be, that have been corrupted by the presence of the thing in the pool. And actually brings me to another point about this. Lore of Larue has literal invisible walls in it. The book actually says if your players stray too far off the path, they immediately run into a literal text quote invisible wall. I hate invisible walls in D&D. They should, in my opinion, they should not exist in D&D. And so there's 2 ways to get around that. The first one is the circular thing, where they walk in one direction and then suddenly they can see a path in front of them, and it's the same path that they walked off of. No matter what direction they go off of the road, they will always wind up back on the road, like they were walking in a big circle, but it's just the magic of the book keeping them in. That's one way to do it. And then there's the second way, and this is the way that I chose to use for this time, where I had a player that went up and began to scout out above, right, with their familiar. And they could see trackless, endless fields of just treetop. And it did not change at all with the elevation, with the terrain around them. They could be on a steep hill going down into what seemed like a huge valley, and they'd go up to the treetops, and it would just look like flat land with trees on it. Impossibly uniform would be the term I would use for that. So that indicates this is not a real place. This is not a place where you can just head west until west is no more and eventually find something completely different. The confines of this book, of this demiplane, are very real, and you cannot just leave, right? There's so many better ways to say that than, oh, your character walks into an invisible wall. I hate invisible walls in video games, and my hatred for them in video games means that I will never put them into a D&D game. Literal invisible walls that block terrain that otherwise cannot be reached. Yeah, no thank you. So yeah, so they run across this group of reveling Malar cultists, I say. And this is a combat where they could very easily ambush the cultists. They're partying, they're drinking. A lot of them will have disadvantage on their initiative rolls. They have a couple of wargs that may be able to detect the party before they arrive, but if they're being careful enough, they should be able to get the jump on these guys, kick their butts pretty efficiently and quickly, and then move on to the Pool of Eternal Spring. Now, the second encounter and the confrontation with those cultists, I expect to be the end of the session. I expect that to be as far as we get for this one. But LaRue is in that pool, and she is not doing great. So we'll pick up there with the next breakdown. We should be getting back to doing these per session, session by session. And yeah, that is really it. That is really as far as we expect to get today. We have our NPCs. Our NPCs are very, I want to say, shallow for this adventure. This is a fun little one-off adventure, but it doesn't have a whole lot of substance to it. A lot of the substance that is there, I should say, I added myself to facilitate the homebrew campaign that I've spun everything into. So as such, the NPCs in here aren't super interesting. The satyrs are pretty fun. There's a group of satyrs, but they're already out of the picture by now. But yeah, keeping a good eye on what's going on in Candlekeep, because we now have Adso is a great reader. I'm sorry, Adso is a master reader now, because Kravis Undwilm just got promoted to great reader. But yeah, we have our 3 hags. We have our berserkers from the encampment, and we now have the wargs. There's a few potions at the hag's hovel, and yeah, that is all we really got to go over for today. We have all of our music picked out already from previous sessions. The Haunted Forest, Blighted Forest, Heart is a great one to use. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. As always, these are available a full month early to my patrons. If you'd like to check that out, the link is below. But until next time, have a good one.